Welcome to the first episode of Eye of the Storm, a Guelph Storm podcast with myself, Ryan Drury. You may recognize me as the voice of the Guelph Storm on Rogers TV 20, and you should recognize our first guest. Very pleased to welcome the head coach of your Guelph Storm, Chad Wiseman. Chad, how are you? How's your summer been?
Ryan, good. Thanks. Like we just kind of connected there a little bit earlier, but summer's been hectic. Family keeps you busy. My daughter Kai is 17 and being recruited by schools in the U.S. for soccer. So we've been all over the U.S. and different states, Florida, West Virginia, Kentucky, and doing those routes. And my little guy is 11, plays U12 AAA hockey here in Guelph, and we try to keep him out of the rinks in the summer. So lots of golf, flag football, and soccer for him.
Geez, the coach's life, it seems like you can't escape it, eh? It's whether it's your kids or an OHL team. And let's talk about that team. Obviously, let's take a quick look back before we look ahead to what should be a very exciting year at the Sleeman Center, Chad. And obviously last year, the team got off to a tough start. You stepped into a role that you maybe initially heading into the season weren't expecting to, but I think that you ended up doing a great job, and the team had one of the best second halves of any team in the league. But tell me a little bit about that start, because it was obviously a difficult thing to go through. As a coach, how difficult is it to kind of ride that line between trying to get things corrected, but also trying to keep everybody in the room in a positive mind frame?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough adjustment for any sports teams anytime there's personnel change for whatever reasons they're made. And I think then all of a sudden you have a new face, you have to hire a new assistant. Maybe a lot of similarities between Scott and I, but obviously differences as well, right? So you try not to rock the boat too much systematically with the things that you're doing or trying to accomplish. We were a bit. I always say we went through turbulence early, like turbulence, my fancy word for adversity, and we know what's going to happen in every season. And for us, it just hit us early with Scott's unfortunate medical background or history, and having to walk away, and then new staff kind of implemented it, and we really struggled early. Special teams, we had injuries, illnesses. I mean, COVID obviously still part of our lives, but we finished some games. I remember a game in Owen Sound. We finished with 7 forwards, and one of those forwards was a D. So we had travel early, and I'm not making excuses. This is probably what I believe is a big part of our success of the second half of the year is the adversity or the turbulence that we went through the first half of the year, and learning what that felt like. And we didn't want to have to go through that again, right? So where some teams do the opposite, and they're successful early, and then they hit some turbulence and they have their struggles. But to be honest with you, we spent a lot of time on practice. I'd say 90% of our time was learning how to practice better, the importance of practice and preparation. And what we did is we videoed our practices for the first 3 or 4 weeks. We didn't even watch pre-scouts anymore. We just focused on us, how we practiced every day, what it looked like, and how that translates to a game.
As you look forward this year, obviously in the OHL, there's usually a lot more turnover than there is at the pro level. And part of that, a difficult part of it, is losing overage players, and you're losing 3 pretty good ones, pretty integral pieces of the team. Just tell us a little bit about what Ben McFarland, Captain Cooper Walker, and of course Jake Murray meant to the squad last year, because I really feel like the leadership and the play of those 3 guys really helped spark that turnaround, Chad.
Absolutely. And Coop and Benny have been part of our association their whole career. They are best exemplify what we are and what we believe a Guelph Storm player is. Again, the way they practice, the way they handle themselves every day in the community, you won't find better people. Yes, they're great hockey players, but you won't find better people with better leadership skills. Cooper is just a guy who does the right thing all the time. He earns your coach's trust, and he gets opportunity because of that. Benny's the same way. They grew up playing together. Again, if you want to talk about practice habits, like you're looking at those 2 guys and how they do things. And I think over time, they may not they weren't drafted maybe or put up a ton of points in their previous years, but they quickly earn the respect of their peers by how hard they compete, the way they practice. We were unfortunate, we lost Luka Pravaca early on, and we had to replace him with Murray, and he was just a stand-up professional, great guy in the room. The right thing to say all the time, when to speak, when not to speak, when to lead by example on the ice, practice the right way, good citizen, good community guy. So it's hard. Every team loses them. There's no turnover, which you spoke about. Those are hard guys to replace. But at the end of the day, I hope or we believe that guys that are coming up from underneath them, or their younger guys, have learned from them and are going to take on those leadership roles because they did such a good job, of being those leaders.
Part of looking forward to next year is still kind of looking back on something that happened last season. And, the story of the Guelph Storm year last year really is a tale of two teams. And generally speaking, after a tough start and you trade away your best goal scorer, and then obviously before the deadline, another great guy and a good kid that we all loved in Danny Zhilkin goes as well. Generally, when a team does that, at any level, Chad, you don't expect for things to swing the other way. And boy, did they ever. And part of that was a guy coming the other way, a former third overall pick from Sarnia in that Passage trade, Max Nemesnikov, who quickly became a fan favorite. He scored 35 last year. I believe 26 of those were as a member of the Guelph Storm. I mean, this kid just turned into an absolute electric rod for the team. What is it about the way he plays and fit into your system that helped make him and ultimately your team so successful?
Sure, absolutely. Losing Danny and Pastor, it's tough, and like you said, those are two top goal scorers on our team. But when guys like that move on or are moved out, it creates opportunity for other guys. And you could look back at Matthew Potras. It became our well, he was our best player, and not just because of the stats, but the growth that he took as an individual from the beginning to the middle to the end of the year, and took on that leadership role. So guys were able to elevate their game that we already had within our team. And then they bring a guy in like Max, who had some struggles in Sarnia. I don't know what happened there, but maybe it's a confidence thing. And you see it all the time in pro sports, and somebody moves on to another team and has great success. And I think he just needed a change of scenery. And what I say about him is nobody works harder than Max Nemesnikov, and he's kind of the one that we talk about players trying to raise their level to, because this guy's engine is elite. It's an NHL engine, and he never stops. He understands he's a bit undersized, and he needs to work harder, compete harder, work out harder, and he does all those things, at an elite level. So his work ethic alone it drives his success for sure. He's hungry to score. He wants to be around the net. He's not afraid to play through traffic. He's not, if anything, he's probably guilty of getting in too many compete situations with bigger, stronger guys, but he just has that kind of bull-like mentality. And he's going to be a huge part of our core group this year. And obviously expectations are high for him. And personally, I know I spoke to him the other day, so he's excited to get going, and he's going to be a huge piece of the puzzle this year.
Yeah, he always excites us up in the booth. And of course, the fans, they all love Mad Max. And I feel like if he had like a theme song, it would be an AC/DC song or something. It's just all power all the time. And you never see him standing still. And obviously that endeared him to the fan base and, of course, the coaching staff. You mentioned another guy that's going to be a really key contributor this year. And I said on another podcast about a week ago that I really feel like you should bet on this guy leading the league in scoring, and that's Matt Poitras. And boy, you talk about great second halves. Not that he had a bad first half point wise, but man, as soon as Max came over and he kind of solidified on that line with Braden Bowman, that line became one of the best top units in the league. 95 points for Matty P, 79 of them assists. He just came too shy of O-Dog's franchise record for 81 in a season. I know he's probably motivated to break that. I think he could score 120 this year, Chad, but tell us about all the little things that he does that don't necessarily show up on score sheets that people get excited about when it comes to Matt Poitras.
Sure. I mean, Matthew is a player that, for me, probably had the largest growth as an individual last year, from the beginning of the season to the end. And the result maybe was the points, but it was how he played the game. Then he ends up signing a contract with Boston, which was well deserved. And we talk a lot about the inputs versus the outputs being maybe scoring the goal or winning a game or whatnot. But all the inputs along the way was what's going to develop the athlete and create success for that individual and in our group, our team. And Matthew, once he figured that out, it might have took a few months for him to for maybe me to earn his trust. Once that relationship became stronger, and he realized, that we're here to help him, and that Matthew's just one of those guys. Once you get his trust, then he's going to be even better. And he became a huge leader for our team. I'd say after Christmas, became one of our best practice players. In games, he manages the puck so well in tight spaces. He can make something out of nothing. He doesn't throw pucks away. If anything, I'd rather see him shoot a little bit more and become a little bit more selfish because he can score. He has a great shot. Obviously, he's an elite passer, but he can score more than he showed last year. So I don't want to put a number on what our expectation would be because I believe that it's going to be a direct result of him playing the game the right way. But he's going to be a huge leader on this team, and the expectations, I'm assuming, for himself and us are high. But I'm excited to see him back here this next week.
Now, Chad, I know that you can't reveal this now because they want to save it for when the season starts, but obviously you're going to need a new captain this year. And, we've already brought him up a couple times here. I think, my vote would probably go to Braden Bowman. I love him. That I'm unabashed in my praise of him. I still believe he's visited a couple NHL camps the last couple of years. I still believe he's a pro player. And I think he might be the most underrated player in the OHL. I mean, he never gets brought up when you talk about great goal scorers. And this guy missed 13 games last year and still scored 34, Chad. I mean, he is so underrated. And the way he scores his goals is what sticks out for me. He is always putting his nose in the dirty areas. And you can tell that he's a really well-liked teammate and a guy that really sparks some energy for you guys on a nightly basis. And you can rely on him in all situations too. What makes him so special?
Yeah, I don't know if he's underrated anymore. I think everyone knows him now. He's had two pretty big years and a lot of games missed. Yeah, I mean, Bonesy's he has the best probably overall habits of any player that we have. I always call him pro-like habits. Bonesy does the right thing all the time. He's one of the hardest workers every day in practice. He's the guy staying on extra to shoot extra pucks, and probably a direct result of why he scores more goals. He takes, he's kind of just that hockey nerd, I guess, that hockey guy that just eats, sleeps, and breathes hockey all the time. And he's so passionate about the game. So he's again a huge part of that leadership group. He's earned that right, whether he's wearing a C or not. Again, we're not gonna let anybody know that here now, but he's definitely a guy that could absolutely be that guy. I believe a lot of pro teams have noticed him. I think this is a huge year for him. You see overage guys sign all the time during the season. But he's the kind of guy that hasn't been affected by not being drafted and not being signed yet. He just keeps doing his thing all the time, and that's why he's going to have success, and that's why I believe he's going to be a pro hockey player.
I completely agree. I think he's got a pro career written all over him. You look at your back end as well, and you have two very talented puck movers back there. Obviously, George Burnett making a move to bring in a veteran and Braden Hislop coming over from a very powerful North Bay team to kind of add some grit and some fire back there. But a lot of the attention goes toward Michael Bushinger and Cam Allen, and for good reason. Those two can really do a lot of great things with the puck, and they can play really well in your own zone. And obviously some sad news that Cam's going to miss the first half of the year. He's going to have shoulder surgery, which is unfortunate. But, when you're talking about what those two guys bring, yes, they're different in the way they do it, but they bring a lot to your blue line. Talk a little bit about what they can do for your team.
Sure. I mean, Bushy's, probably one of the most elite offensive defensemen in the league at this point, and can skate the puck out of pressure. He can advance the puck. He processes the game really, really well. Can run a power play. I mean, he's an elite defenseman at this level, and again, really great habits overall. The way he practices his training routine. He's matured a lot the last few years, as they all do, as they grow and develop through the league. Obviously, missing Cam to start the year is a little bit disappointing, but it's the right decision, and he needs to get healthy and get back to being Cam Allen, because he is one of the hardest players to play against in this league. He competes harder than anybody. He makes practice better. He's natural leadership skills. So bringing in a guy like Braden to bring that veteran presence in is huge. We watched a lot of video on him. Rob Collins, our assistant coach, has coached him in Junior B before. So we're very aware of who he is as a person and an athlete. And for us, if now we're getting Cam back in the new year, is kind of like getting a new player in a trade. So it's just a kind of a reverse role. If Cam has started, we added a defenseman later. You're probably in the same position. Obviously, you want Cam in the lineup, but a healthy Cam Allen in January is going to be a really nice addition to this group.
Yeah, one thing that really impressed me about him last year, Chad, was obviously, a lot of noise about the draft. He was rated as a first rounder. He somehow inexplicably falls into the 5th round to my Washington Capitals. I don't know how that happened, but he took it in stride. And one thing that really impressed me was in that second half, we all know he can play well in the offensive zone, but he really took ownership of his own zone and started to compete at a higher level defensively and took a lot of pride in that. And you mentioned his compete level. I mean, I remember in his rookie year when he fought Federcow on London, that guy's a whole head taller than him, and he stood his ground in there. And I mean, that's got to, that endears him to his teammates. And, he's not the biggest guy, but boy, he throws his weight around like he's 6'5". And speaking of bigger guys, obviously, George Burnett trying to bring in a little more size to the team. Obviously, his lop addresses some of that, but the import picks that you guys made this year as well in Vilmer Ulriksson, who's a big cat. This guy is a big dude coming over from Sweden, a 4th rounder selected this year by Vancouver. And then obviously Slavik, the goalie, coming over from Slovakia. He's 6'4". You must be excited about some of the prospects here that are coming into the Guelph organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just touching on Cam before we move on, and you talked about him defending last year. People don't realize his offensive numbers maybe went down from year 1, but he's also playing against every other team's top line in year 2, which is still pretty impressive for a young man. So his minutes became a lot harder last year, where year 1 he's getting 3rd line and sometimes 4th line matchups, and year 2 he's playing against every other team's top line. It's a big ask, and it's tough for a young man, and he was able to do it. So you're right. He can defend, and he became one of our best defenders and hardest guys to play against. But to move on to your comment there about Arliksson and Slavik, and obviously Slavik's a goalie, so that he's big and there's a presence there for sure. I've only seen him play a few times over video, so I'm excited to get an opportunity to see him. I talked with him on Zoom the other day. He's excited to get down here. Arliksson, I've seen play a bunch more. I mean, he's 6'6", 225, I think, and he can skate. So he's going to add he's going to open up space, I think, for some of our skilled guys and maybe some of our undersized forwards. So it's a huge addition to our lineup to add a guy that big that can skate that well and has a skill set. So excited to see them both get here in the next few days.
One thing that people will know about George Burnett run teams is he likes to have options at all positions, but particularly he likes to have goaltending depth. And getting Slavik in the picture here, I mean, there's 3 goalies now that are potentially involved. And we all saw what Braden Gillespie did last year as a call-up, and basically a young kid. I mean, he's barely 17 years old playing Junior B, and he played very well for the Air Centennials. But he stepped in and did a lot of great things for you. I know Tony Saxon kind of dubbed him Mr. Friday Night Lights, and we kind of adopted that up in the booth whenever we saw him, and he performed like he was under the Friday Night Lights. And obviously a veteran guy in Patrick Lever, he came in and really stabilized things for you guys in that great second half. There's obviously some great options for you in the blue paint this year, and any team that's going to compete, Chad, you need that, right?
Yeah, and depth at any position is helpful in building a strong roster. And Lever did a really nice job last year coming in, and a great guy in the room, great practice. Players loved him. He's good in the community, so he filled that void for us, and he was fantastic. And Braden made good on an opportunity last year where he was down playing Junior B, and he was making some appearances here, and not just being good, but being really good, maybe great. And and earn an opportunity to be here full time and full time again here this year. So it'll be fun to see the competitiveness in camp. And then obviously we're bringing in Slavic, who's a huge body that's mobile. And again, hasn't played many games in Slovakia, but could be a kind of a diamond in the rough guy once he gets here and starts playing a lot more.
Chad, before we let you go, we got to let you get back to the whiteboard here. I know you're prepping here for training camp in the preseason. I'm excited to run into you at the rink here. Before we let you go, there are a lot of great characters on this team and a lot of guys that really did a lot of jobs last year for you that don't show up on the score sheet. They're not on a lot of highlight reels. Who are some guys that you think maybe deserve a little more attention for some of the stuff that they do? Because, man, you look down your roster at the Paquettes, the McGuires, guys like that. I mean, that just do the lunch pail work out there every night. Who are some guys on your team that you think maybe deserve a little more praise from, the wider fan base and maybe the broadcasters?
Sure. You know what, we take a lot of pride in role and identity here, and players really owning who they are and what they can be versus what they want to be. Ryan McGuire is a guy, Charlie Paquette, both skate well, physical, hard to play against, kind of that true third line at the next level, probably a true third line kind of kill penalties, play against other teams' top lines, hard working guys in practice, compete. Willing to drop the gloves, not necessary at this day and age anymore, but they're willing to still. I think both of Charlie and Migsy provide space for their teammates. Great on the forecheck, want to be physical. So again, both guys with leadership qualities as well. We could go down the lineup with some younger guys, a guy like Top, who's coming in, has only played 10 games last year, kind of has Cam Allen-like habits outside the rink, in the gym all the time. You got to pull him off the ice. So he's still a young guy, but you want people like that in your organization that want to work hard and do the right thing all the time. A guy like Sandu, I think, is going to turn a lot of heads this year. Big kid, skates well. Really saw a change in him last year, about halfway through the year, and understanding the importance of preparation and really buying into the process. So I'm excited for this group in general. There's a lot of depth here, a lot of guys that believe in what we're doing, and we've met with all the players here over the last week or 10 days, and they're all excited to go.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many other great names that we haven't even mentioned here. The Carabellas of the world, Jet Luchenko, who's already a great skater that can contribute. I mean, I'm really excited about this year, Chad. I think you guys turned a lot of heads with that great second half where a lot of people wrote you off after the start the team had, and you guys never quit. You bent, but you did not break, and that earned a lot of respect around the league. I think people should be afraid to play in the Guelph Storm in the 2023-24 season. I really appreciate your time on this first episode of Eye of the Storm, Chad. Best of luck with the season. I can't wait to see you at the Sleeman Center, my friend. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. You can find Eye of the Storm, a Guelph Storm podcast with me, Ryan Drury, on all your favorite podcast apps. You can watch it on our YouTube channel, Eye of the Storm, and find it on all the team's social media. Remember, for all your ticketing needs, you can visit the Guelph Storm website for more. I'm Ryan Drury, and this has been episode 1 of Eye of the Storm podcast. Thanks for listening and watching.